Welcome to Wisdom Time. Have you ever felt that? That feeling? A deep spiritual fatigue where you really want to connect, you want to pray, but you are just completely drained? It's like a kind of burnout that can feel super isolating, but trust me, you are not alone. So in this explainer, we're going to dive into a practical guide for those exact moments.
So, here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll talk about this energy crisis in prayer itself. Then, we'll look at some super simple prayers for when you have low energy, kind of like spiritual first aid. After that, we're going to get into boosting your overall life energy, what drains it the most, and finally, how to get on your own path to renewal. All right, first things first, we have to just acknowledge this state. This is so important. Feeling this way isn't about a lack of faith or you doing something wrong. It's about a very real crisis of energy that, a lot of people go through. And just recognizing it, that's the first step to actually doing something about it. So this is the big question, right? This is what we're tackling today. You've got the desire in your heart. You want to do it, but your mind and your body, they just will not cooperate. It feels like hitting a brick wall. So what do? Well, the answer isn't to just try and force it. It's about changing your entire approach. Okay, let's start with some immediate practical tools. I want you to think of these as spiritual first aid. These are simple, really low-effort techniques you can use right now to keep that connection going even when you feel like you're running on empty. So, we're going to explore 3 really different methods here. The first one is all about gentle repetition. The second is about having a raw, totally honest conversation. And the third, well, it's a more disciplined, get-it-done approach that actually works wonders for certain personalities. Let's break them down. All right, method 1 is mindless repetition, and I mean that in the best way possible. You can grab a prayer counter or, heck, just use your fingers. The idea is to repeat short phrases of remembrance without any mental strain at all. You can do it while you're walking, on the bus, even while you're half watching something. The goal is just to keep your tongue moist with remembrance without taxing your exhausted mind. And you don't need these long, complicated verses. The source suggests these beautifully short phrases like la havle, which basically means there's no power or strength except with God. Or even just Hasbiya, a simple declaration that God is sufficient for me. See? They're designed to be easy to repeat, creating this gentle, constant connection. Now, if that repetition thing doesn't feel right for you, there's a second path, sincere conversation. This needs zero formal structure, no special words. The source suggests you find a quiet moment, maybe when you're just lying in bed at night, and you just talk. You just describe your state exactly as it is. And this just brilliantly shows the power of being that honest. I mean, look at this example prayer. It's not poetic, it's raw. It's a complete admission of weakness. I can't do it, I don't have the strength. Sometimes the most powerful prayer you can offer is just showing up in all your brokenness and asking for help. Okay, method number 3 is for a totally different kind of person. For some of us, the idea of a long, drawn-out act of worship, it just feels impossible when you're drained. So the get-it-done method can be surprisingly effective. You set a tiny, concrete, quick goal, like reading one short passage first thing in the morning, and you just do it. No overthinking. And over time, that small act of discipline can actually start to rebuild your spiritual energy. Okay, so those were the immediate first aid tips. But for a more lasting solution, we need to zoom out a little bit. Because this isn't just about spiritual practices in a vacuum. It's about building a much stronger foundation for your entire life. And this right here brings us to a really core insight. Your ability to connect spiritually is deeply tied to your physical and mental well-being. I mean, you can't pour from an empty cup, right? If your overall life energy is depleted, your spiritual energy will be too. They're basically 2 sides of the same coin. So how do you recharge? Well, the source material gives us 3 simple but super powerful pillars. First, sleep. It's just non-negotiable. You have to prioritize it. Second, movement. And we're not talking about running a marathon here. Just 5 minutes a day to get your heart rate up can make a massive difference. And third, connection. Real, genuine, laughter-filled time with good friends in a positive space is such a powerful source of energy. So before we move on to what is maybe the single biggest threat to your energy, if you're finding these tips helpful, we've got a lot more explainers like this coming your way. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, like our video, and turn on that notification bell so you don't miss a thing. All right, we've talked about what to do when your energy is low and how to build it back up, but what's causing the drain in the first place? This next part, honestly, it's probably the most important piece of the entire puzzle.
Because you can be doing everything else right. You could be getting enough sleep, exercising, seeing friends. But if you don't get a handle on this one area, your energy is just going to keep leaking away.
So let's just put this side by side for a second. On one side, you've got the energy givers we just talked about, but on the other, these are the ultimate energy drainers. Anxiety, constantly replaying a past you can't change, and this intense, paralyzing fear of the future. These mental states don't just drain you, they absolutely consume you.
And this is exactly why you cannot afford to just surrender to these feelings. The source uses this really powerful image of a sea of negative emotions, and letting yourself drown in that sea of anxiety, fear, and sadness, it's the fastest way to deplete every single ounce of energy you have, both spiritual and physical. So, how do you fight back? Actively. It takes a conscious effort. When you feel yourself starting to sink, you have to distract your mind, even with something totally trivial. Open up and actually talk about your worries with friends you trust. Don't let these thoughts just fester in silence. You have to become an active manager of your own mental state. Okay, so let's bring all of this together now. It's not about doing just one thing. It's about having a whole strategy for renewal that addresses the immediate problem, the foundational issues, and the critical threats to your well-being. So here is your path forward. First, when you're feeling drained, use that spiritual first aid we talked about, the simple repetition or the really sincere conversation. Second, work on building your foundational energy through sleep, movement, and connection. And third, and this is the one that protects all your progress, you have to actively shield your mind from the poison of anxiety, fear, and regret. And that leaves us with a final thought to really chew on. We often think of worship as an act of giving energy. But what if the reverse is also true? What if actively protecting your energy, your mental, your physical, your emotional well-being, is, in itself, one of the most fundamental acts of worship you can possibly perform? It's something to think about.